Hey, so tonight, we're going to talk about something they definitely didn't teach you in history class. The amazing women who basically ran the Wild West from behind the scenes. I'm talking about madams. These were smart businesswomen who turned what most people thought was wrong into serious empires. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate. I'm super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice, slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to the American frontier of the 1870s. And trust me, you're going to be really grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So, congratulations. You just woke up in a small, cramped room above a Wild West saloon. The first thing that hits you is the smell. It's not just body odor, though there's plenty of that. It's a mix of wood smoke from the stove in the corner, cheap perfume trying to cover up everything else, and the clear smell of last night's whiskey and tobacco that seems stuck deep in the rough wooden floors. Your nose wrinkles as you notice another smell, horse manure from the street below, drifting through the thin cotton curtains that barely cover the single window. Then come the sounds. A piano is being tuned somewhere downstairs with the notes repeating and adjusting. You hear the clatter of a wagon passing by on the dusty street, its wheels catching on the uneven ground. Voices call to each other, a mix of English, Spanish, and what sounds like German. A woman's laugh, sharp and practiced, cuts through it all. You're lying on a narrow iron bed with a lumpy mattress made of horsehair that pokes you in all the wrong places. The scratchy wool blanket covering you is a faded red. It was once fancy, but now it's worn thin in some spots. There are no sheets. Those are for the fancy places, and this isn't one of them. Next to the bed, there is a chipped wash basin with water that's already lukewarm. A small piece of harsh soap sits beside it. The room itself is tiny, with just enough space for the bed, a wobbly three-legged table with an oil lamp, and a beaten-up trunk that holds everything the owner possesses. The walls are so thin, you can hear someone snoring in the next room. On a nail by the door hangs a faded cotton dress with a pair of worn leather boots underneath it. Welcome to 1878. This is life for a soiled dove, a working girl in a western mining town. The good news is, you're not actually one of the working girls. The bad news is, you're the madam who runs this place in the American West of the 1870s and 1880s. Being a madam was pretty much the only way a woman could become independently wealthy. Think about it. Women couldn't vote. Most respectable jobs were not open to them. They couldn't get business loans from banks. Heck, they could barely own property in most places without a man's name on the deed. But madams, these women found a loophole in society's rules. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, and your muscles ache with every movement. Running a brothel isn't exactly restful work. You've been up until the early hours, making sure the customers behaved, that the money was exchanged correctly, and that none of your girls were being treated badly or holding back on your share. Your head throbs a little from the 2 glasses of whiskey you allowed yourself. It was good for business to drink with customers, but bad for your head the next morning. As you stand, your bare feet touch the rough wooden planks that haven't been properly scrubbed in years. There are gaps between some boards, wide enough to see the saloon below. Splinters are a daily problem. You reach for a worn cotton wrapper to throw over your undergarment before heading to the wash basin. The water is cold now, but you splash. Some on your face, anyway. There's no mirror here. Those are expensive and easily broken in a place visited by drunken cowboys and miners. You know your face by feel anyway. The lines at the corners of your eyes that weren't there 5 years ago, and the way your mouth has grown harder over time. You're 35 now, and have been running this place for nearly 7 years. It's not the fanciest brothel in town, but it's not the worst either. You have 6 girls working for you, 3 in rooms along this narrow hallway, and 3 more in the small building out back. Most madams in town started out as working girls themselves. Some still take special customers, the wealthy ones, the powerful ones, who might be useful, but not you. You figured out early on that the real money wasn't in selling your own company, but in taking a percentage from others. Downstairs, you hear the bartender starting his day with glasses clinking as he sets up. It's time to get moving. You have supplies to order, a sheriff to pay off, and a new girl arriving on the afternoon stagecoach who needs to be shown how things work. You pull on a dark blue skirt and a white blouse, practical clothes for the business side of your day. Later, you'll change into something more impressive. Silk if you have it, velvet if you don't. Part of being a successful madam is looking the part. The customers expect it, and appearances matter in this business. The famous madams, like Maddie Silks in Denver or Jenny Rogers, knew exactly how to use their looks to show success. If you looked successful, you attracted better customers and could charge more. It was basic business, but with a woman's touch. These women wore the finest dresses, were covered in jewelry, and made sure everyone in town knew they were doing well. Speaking of Maddie Silks, there's a story that when she first arrived in Denver in the 1870s, she rolled into town with 4 girls she'd hired in Kansas City. But they didn't just travel straight there. Mattie was smart. She had what she called a portable boarding house set up in her coach. The girls did business at every mining camp along the way. By the time they reached Denver, they'd already made enough to set up their business in style. That's the kind of thinking that separated successful madams from the rest. They saw opportunities where others just saw hardship. You tighten the laces of your boots, wincing as they press against a blister from yesterday. Comfortable shoes aren't really an option in your line of work. The delicate boots with their pointed toes and tunch heels are murder on your feet, but they're part of the uniform. At least you're not wearing the corset yet. That torture device can wait until evening. As you finish dressing, your mind runs through the finances. Last night was profitable. A payday for the miners means customers spend freely. You keep the books yourself, not trusting anyone else with the numbers. In your bottom drawer, under a false panel, sits a leather-bound book with every transaction carefully written down. Another book, the one you'd actually show if some nosy lawman came asking questions, sits in plain sight with much smaller numbers. Most successful madams were excellent with money. They had to be. Jenny Rogers, the queen of the row in Denver, invested her brothel earnings into the city's water systems and made a nice profit on that too. Maddie Silks bought real estate all over Denver. By the time she retired, she owned half a block of prime downtown property. The system worked like this. A girl might charge $5 for her company. That same $5 covered her room and food at your place. Anything she made beyond that basic amount could be used for clothes, medicine, or saved for the future. But some madams weren't that generous. If a girl didn't make a minimum amount, she might find herself thrown out on the street. Business was business, after all. You weren't that harsh. You understood that everyone has off nights or times when they're not feeling well. But you did take 50% of everything your girls made in return for providing a room, food, some protection, and a steady stream of customers. Beyond the basic services, there was alcohol, lots of it. It was watered down and marked up by as much as 60%. That's where the real money was. Get the customers drinking. Get them paying for drinks for the girls, which were mostly colored water, and the profits rolled in. Some saloon girls earned commissions on the drinks they sold, but that money usually went right back to the madam to cover the cost of fancy clothes or other things they needed. You make your way downstairs. Each step on the narrow staircase creaks loudly enough to announce your arrival. The saloon is quiet this early. It's just the bartender wiping down the already clean bar top with a rag that's seen better days. He nods at you respectfully. He knows who signs his paychecks. "Morning, Miss Catherine," he says, using the name you've adopted for your business. Your real name hasn't been spoken by you in years. Most madams operated under fake names. It was safer that way. "Morning, Thomas. Any trouble after I went to bed?" you ask, looking around the room for any damage from last night. "Nothing worth mentioning. Had to walk Mr. Wilson home again. The man can't hold his liquor." You nod, making a mental note to suggest to Mr. Wilson's wife that she might want to keep a closer eye on her husband. Not that you'd actually say anything. Being discreet is another key part of your business, but it's good to keep track of which customers might become problems. The saloon itself is pretty typical for a mining town. It has a long bar along one wall, scarred from years of bottles, glasses, and sometimes knives. There are a dozen small tables with mismatched chairs. A small raised platform at the far end serves as a stage for the piano player, and, sometimes, a singer, if you can find one who won't rob you blind. The walls are decorated with faded pictures of racehorses and hunting scenes, torn from Eastern magazines, plus a large, cracked mirror behind the bar that makes the room look twice as big. It's not the House of Mirrors in Denver, with its floor-to-ceiling mirrors and velvet furniture, but it does its job for customers. It must be the supply wagon with the weekly delivery of whiskey and beer. "I'll get it," you tell Thomas, heading toward the storeroom. It's not the supply wagon. Instead, you find yourself face to face with Sheriff Mills, his expression serious under his bushy mustache. Your heart sinks. This can't be good news. "Morning, Catherine," he says, removing his hat. At least he's being polite. "That's something, Sheriff. What brings you by so early?" "Our usual arrangement isn't due until Friday." The arrangement is the monthly payment that ensures the sheriff finds more important things to do than raid your place. Not about that. There's been some trouble over at Lily's place. Lily ran a smaller brothel on the edge of town. It catered mostly to minors, the ones who couldn't afford your prices. "What kind of trouble?" you ask, already guessing the answer. "She's dead, stabbed. One of her girls, too." Even in a rough town like this, any idea who did it? The sheriff shakes his head, working on it. "Just thought you should know. Might want to be extra careful for a while." You nod, your mind already racing. "You'll need to hire an extra man for security, warn the girls to be especially careful, and maybe raise prices for a little while to cover the extra cost." "Thanks for letting me know," you say, reaching into your pocket and pulling out a silver dollar. It's not exactly a bribe, just a small thank you for the warning. After he leaves, you lean against the doorframe for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Lily is dead. You didn't know her well. Competitors keep their distance. It's a sharp reminder of the risky position you're in. For all the money you've made, for all your business skill and careful planning, like Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and countless others faced every day, they built empires out of desire and loneliness. They made fortunes where other women couldn't even find jobs, but they always lived on the edge of disaster, and everything they'd built could disappear overnight. Yet they kept going. They grew their businesses, paid off local politicians, and tried to make their trade seem more legitimate however they could. Owned by a woman at the time, you straighten up and head back into the saloon. There's no time to think about what might happen. There's business to take care of. Cracked window upstairs, and maybe get that new piano you've been wanting. And customers bring in money. The economics of running a brothel in the Wild West were simple, but required careful management. Alcohol sales provided a steady income. Special services brought in larger amounts of money, but were less regular. Rooms could be rented by the hour or the night, depending on what the customer wanted and how much money he had. Everything had its price, clearly set and not up for negotiation. As you count the figures in your ledger, you can't help but think about what Sheriff Mills said. Lily's death is a reminder of how quickly things can change in this business. You've been putting money aside for years now, hoping to eventually buy a small property somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows your history. Most madams dreamed of retiring before age caught up with them. Few managed to do it. The famous Pearl DeVere of Cripple Creek tried to keep her business going well into her 30s, throwing fancy parties and charging huge amounts for her company. She died of a morphine overdose in 1897 after one such party. In a shaft of bright morning sunlight, one of your girls, Sadie, enters, carrying a basket of fresh bread from the bakery down the street. The smell hits you, immediately yeast flour and warmth, for a moment overpowering the stale smell of beer and tobacco. "Morning," she calls cheerfully. At 22, Sadie still has an energy and optimism that you sometimes envy. She hasn't been in the business long enough for it to wear her down yet. "Morning," you reply. "Any news from town?" Sadie sets the basket on the bar and begins taking out the loaves. Mrs. Peterson at the bakery says her husband's thinking of running for mayor. "Oh, and the stage is running late today. Wheel trouble outside of Carson City." You nod, making a mental note about the delayed stage. Your new girl will be arriving late then, more time to prepare. Sadie continues chatting as she arranges the bread, sharing all the gossip she's picked up on her morning trip. This is another valuable service your girls provide: information. In a town where everyone has secrets, knowing who's doing what with whom is like having money. You let her talk, while your mind drifts to the practical things of the day ahead. There's the new girl to settle in, a delivery of real French champagne supposedly arriving for your richer customers, and the monthly doctor's visit to arrange. You insist on regular health checks for all your employees, something not every madam bothers with. The life of a Wild West madam was part businesswoman, part mother figure, and part warden. You managed people and profits with equal care. You settled arguments, nursed the sick, protected your girls from abusive customers, and still had to keep up the appearance of gentle hospitality that kept the money flowing. And despite all that work and all that risk, society would never recognize your contributions or success. The same townspeople who visited your place under the cover of darkness would cross the street to avoid you in the daylight. The businessmen who invested your money and profited from your success would never introduce you to their wives. You existed in an in-between space, essential to the town, but officially invisible. Yet, the madams of the West were often among the wealthiest and most influential women of their time. They owned property when most women couldn't. They ran businesses when most women were limited to working at home. They built fortunes when most women depended on men for money. As the morning goes on, the saloon begins to come to life around you. The piano player arrives, his clothes wrinkled from sleeping. Wherever he found space last night, more of your girls appear, some bright and ready for the day, others still fighting off sleep or the effects of last night's drinks. Thomas starts slicing the fresh bread for the simple lunch you offer: bread, cheese, and sometimes stew. If business has been good, you stretch, feeling the tightness in your shoulders release just a bit. You get more comfortable in your chair as the warmth of the day starts to seep through the thin walls. Your body softens slightly, sinking deeper into the wooden seat. There's still so much to do, but for a moment, you allow yourself to relax, to breathe, to simply be. The rhythms of the day continue around you as you settle deeper into this moment of quiet. You hear someone sweeping upstairs, the soft whisper of a broom against wooden floors. The smell of brewing coffee now joins the fresh bread. Your muscles release a little more tension as you adjust your position. That's it, nice and easy. Your breathing naturally slows as you watch the dust motes dancing in the beam of sunlight coming through the window. You feel yourself becoming more comfortable with each breath. In this rare moment of stillness, you observe the saloon slowly waking up, the girls moving through their morning routines. A yawn escapes your lips as the warm spring air drifts through the open doorway, where the sheriff had been standing only moments ago. The moment of peace is broken by the sound of shattering glass upstairs, followed by cursing. You sigh. The life of a madam is never quiet for long. "I'll deal with it," you say to Thomas, who's already looking toward the ceiling with concern. The stairs creak under your boots as you climb back to the second floor. The noise came from Rose's room. She's one of your newer girls, barely 20, with a temper that flares hot and fast. "Everything all right in there?" You call through the thin door. "Fine," comes the sharp reply, followed by the sound of something else breaking. You don't bother knocking, as the madam, every room in this place is yours to enter as you please. The door swings open to reveal Rose standing among the pieces of what used to be a porcelain wash basin. Her face is red, her eyes bright with anger or tears, or both. "Want to tell me what that was about?" You ask, careful to keep your voice calm. You've learned that in this business, judgment only makes things worse. "Johnny Wilson promised to take me away from here," she says, her voice cracking. "Said he was saving up to buy us a little place outside of town. Then I saw him this morning, heading into the stagecoach office with Martha from the hat shop. They had bags packed." You've heard this story before. Different names, different details, but always the same ending. A customer makes promises to a girl, fills her head with dreams of a respectable life, and then disappears. Sometimes they just leave town. Sometimes they show up again next payday, pretending the promises were never made. "That basin's coming out of your earnings," you say, "because business is business." But your tone is gentler than your words. "Get cleaned up and come downstairs for some breakfast. I've got a new dress that might fit you. Green silk would look good with your hair." It's a small kindness, but in this world, small kindnesses are sometimes all you can offer. Rose nods, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. Back downstairs, you find more of your girls have come out of their rooms. Lucy, the oldest, at 29, is helping Thomas slice bread. Mary and Beth, sisters who came west after their parents died in a factory fire back east, are sweeping the floor and arranging chairs. Everyone has a job to do before the customers arrive later. This was how the better brothels operated, like well-managed households. The women weren't just there for the customers' pleasure. They maintained the place, prepared food, kept things clean, and were orderly. Some madams insisted their girls learn to read and write, to speak properly, and to discuss current events. The more skilled the girls, the higher the prices that could be charged. Jenny Rogers was famous for being picky about her soiled doves. She chose only the most attractive, well-behaved young women for her house of mirrors. She dressed them in elegant clothes, housed them in luxurious rooms, and charged high prices. Her place became known as one of the finest brothels in the West, attracting wealthy businessmen, politicians, and visitors who wanted more than just a quick transaction. Your place isn't quite that fancy, but you have standards. Your girls don't work if they're sick or injured. They get regular medical checkups. You don't allow excessive drinking while they're working. And you keep a close eye on customers who might become violent. Not every madam was so careful, but you learned early that healthy content employees are good for business. A knock at the front door interrupts your thoughts. It's still too early for regular customers. I'll get it, Lucy says, wiping her hands on her apron before crossing to the door. She returns a moment later with a young woman who looks like she hasn't slept in days. Her dress, once good quality, is stained from travel and crumpled. She clutches a small bag with white-knuckled hands. She's looking for work, Lucy explains, giving you a quick look that assesses the newcomer. I'm Catherine, you say, extending your hand. I run this establishment. Emily, the young woman replies, her voice barely a whisper. Her handshake is weak, uncertain. Emily Mitchell. Well, Emily Mitchell, you look like you could use a hot meal and a wash before we discuss anything else. Lucy, show her to the back room and find her something clean to wear. As Lucy leads the nervous young woman away, you wonder what her story is. Most girls don't choose this life as their first option. They come to it because they have to, because they're desperate, or because they have no other choices. Some are widows with no way to support themselves. Some have been abandoned by husbands or lovers. Some are running from abusive homes. Some were introduced to the trade by mothers or sisters, already in it, in the harsh reality of the American frontier. Women had few options for independence. They could marry, teach, school, if they were educated enough, work as maids or laundresses for very low wages, or enter the life. For a woman alone in the world, especially one without family or connections, the choice often wasn't much of a choice at all. An hour later, Emily sits across from you at one of the saloon tables. She is now dressed in a borrowed dress of Lucy's that's too large for her small frame. She has eaten a bowl of stew and half a loaf of bread, like someone who hasn't seen a proper meal in days. Some color has returned to her pale cheeks. So, you say, pouring her a cup of coffee from the pot Thomas has brought over. Tell me what brings you here. Her story comes out in pieces. She was a governess for a wealthy family in San Francisco. The master of the house made unwanted advances. When she rejected him, he accused her of stealing a silver hairbrush. His wife believed him. Emily fled before the police could be called, with only what she could carry and the money she'd managed to save. I tried to find proper work, she says, staring into her coffee cup, but without references. ... You nod. It's a common enough story. Society offers women few protections and even fewer second chances. Have you done this kind of work before? You ask directly. There's no point in beating around the bush. She shakes her head, a blush rising from her neck to her cheeks. No, ma'am. Then why come here? This isn't an ordinary boarding house. Emily raises her eyes to meet yours, and you see something there beyond desperation, determination. Because I heard you run a clean place, she says, that you treat your employees fairly. And because I have nowhere else to go, you consider her for a long moment. Taking on an inexperienced girl means time spent training, potential awkwardness with customers, and possible drama when the reality of the work sets in. But something about her steady gaze, despite her situation, interests you. We'll try a week, you decide. You'll start by helping with the cleaning and serving drinks. If that goes well, we'll discuss the rest. Lucy will show you the ropes. You'll get a room and food, plus 10% of what you make. After the first month, if you're still here, that goes up to 20%. It's a fair offer, better than many madams would make, but still heavily in your favor. This is a business, after all, not a charity. Emily nods, and relief washes over her face. Thank you. I won't disappoint you. See that you don't, you reply, rising from the table. Lucy will show you where you'll sleep. As Lucy leads Emily upstairs, Thomas approaches with a folded piece of paper. A message came while you were talking, he says, handing it to you. The note is short, written in the elegant handwriting of Madame Rosalie, who runs the most expensive brothel in town. She's calling the town's madams to a meeting tonight at her place. It's unusual, but given what happened to Lily, it's not unexpected. The madams of a town, while competitors often had a cautious alliance, they set prices together to prevent undercutting each other. They warned each other about violent customers. They sometimes shared the cost of bribing officials or hiring protection. Like any business leaders, they knew that some kinds of cooperation benefited everyone. The famous madams of Denver Matty Silks, Jenny Rogers, and others were known to work together when needed, even as they competed fiercely for customers and status. When the city council tried to shame them by requiring prostitutes to wear yellow ribbons, they turned the rule on its head by dressing entirely in yellow from head to toe, creating a scene that eventually forced the council to cancel the order. You fold the note and tuck it into your pocket. The meeting will mean leaving the saloon during the busy evening hours. It's not ideal, but it's necessary. You'll have Thomas watch things while you're gone. The day continues with the usual tasks. You review supplies with Thomas, making a note of what needs ordering. You settle a small argument between Mary and Beth over a borrowed hairpin that grew into accusations about a stolen customer. You review the books again, considering whether it's time to raise prices. The new mining operation that opened north of town has brought in workers with money to spend. By late afternoon, the saloon is ready for business. The floors have been swept, the spittoons emptied and cleaned, and the bar stocked. Fresh sawdust has been scattered across the floor to soak up spills and make cleanup easier tomorrow. The piano has been tuned as best as your regular player can manage with his limited skills. The girls are dressing for the evening, transforming from the practical women who cleaned and cooked all day into the fantasy figures who will entertain tonight. Corsets are tightened to create dramatic hourglass figures. Hair is arranged in elaborate curls, and makeup is applied to their cheeks and lips. Maybe a bit of powder is used to hide blemishes or signs of tiredness. You go to your own room to change as well. The practical business clothes of the day are replaced by a dress of deep burgundy satin. It's still elegant, even though it's several years out of fashion. A gold locket hangs at your throat, a gift from a customer years ago who had more money than sense. Your hair, now showing threads of gray, is pinned up in a style that suggests you are sophisticated without trying too hard to look young. The transformation isn't just physical. As you dress, you feel yourself becoming the person your customers expect, worldly, a little distant, with a cynical air that somehow remains approachable. Being a madam is a performance, as much as it is a business position. By the time you return downstairs, the first customers are already arriving. They are mostly minors, their faces still bearing the grime of the day's work, despite their attempts to wash up. They order whiskey at the bar, their eyes looking over the girls who have positioned themselves smartly around the room. You make your rounds, greeting regulars by name and introducing yourself to newcomers. Your manner is warm but reserved. You are friendly but not too familiar. You laugh at their jokes but keep a certain distance, but distant enough to command respect. The evening proceeds, as most do. Drinks flow. The piano player pounds out popular tunes, sometimes joined by Rose, who has a surprisingly sweet singing voice when she's not breaking basins. Men pay for dances with the girls, which sometimes lead to more private business upstairs. You watch over it all with a practiced eye, stepping in only when necessary to keep order at 9 o'clock. You catch Lucy's attention and signal that you're leaving for your meeting. She nods, understanding that she's in charge until you return. Lucy has been with you the longest and knows the business almost as well as you do. As you step outside, a welcome relief from the heat and smoke of the saloon. The streets are quieter now, as most respectable businesses are closed for the evening. A few men hang around outside the other saloons in town. It is a large, two-story house painted white with green shutters, designed to look like a respectable home. Only the red lantern, hanging discreetly by the door, shows its true purpose. You're let in by a doorman dressed like a butler, who leads you to a parlor at the back of the house. The room is elegantly furnished with velvet couches, oriental rugs, and oil paintings in gold frames. Crystal bottles of liquor sit on a side table, along with delicate glasses. 3 women are already there. Madame Rosalie herself, a French woman, or at least she claims to be French. No one has ever checked in her 40s, is dressed in midnight blue silk. Jenkins, whose place is on the opposite end of town from yours, mainly serving cowboys and cattlemen passing through. Greetings are exchanged with formal politeness. Drinks are poured. Only when everyone is settled does Madame Rosalie address the reason for the meeting. I assume you've all heard about Lily, she says, her accent getting thicker, as it always does when she's concerned. Everyone nods. News travels fast in a small town, especially news like that. We need to take precautions, Madame Rosalie continues. Hire extra security, perhaps close earlier for a while, and raise our prices to cover the extra expense. Harriet suggests practically. The discussion continues like this for some time. Practical considerations, business decisions. What happened to Lily could happen to any of them. Despite the wealth they had, despite the power they had in their own places, madams lived in a risky position. They operated outside the protection of the law, while also being subject to its penalties. They were essential to their communities, yet looked down upon by polite society. They were entrepreneurs in a time when women weren't supposed to have business skills. Many, like Jenny Rogers and Maddie Silks, tried to gain respectability through charity work. They donated to churches, orphanages, and hospitals. They bought clothes and school supplies for poor children. They contributed to public projects, but acceptance was hard to find. The money was welcomed, but the women themselves were not. The meeting ends with agreements about new security measures and a pact to share information about any suspicious customers. As you prepare to leave, Madame Rosalie pulls you aside. Catherine, a word, she says, guiding you to a quiet corner. What is it? You ask, noticing the concern in her eyes. I heard a rumor that Lily had been keeping a book. Names, dates, special requests, the sort of information that could ruin a man's reputation. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. You think that's why she was killed? Madame Rosalie shrugs elegantly. I think it would be wise for all of us to be careful about what we know, and who knows what we know. The warning sits heavily with you as you make your way back through the quiet streets to your own place. Jenny Rogers once blackmailed a local politician by threatening to expose him as a frequent customer, earning herself $17,000 in the process of fortune at the time. Busy when you return, though the crowd has thinned out a bit. Thomas catches your eye from behind the bar and gives a slight shake of his head, meaning that nothing requiring your attention has happened while you were away. You make another round of the room, checking on your girls and assessing the mood of the customers. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Emily is serving drinks, her nervousness from earlier replaced by a careful attentiveness. She do well, you think, if she can maintain that balance of being available but also reserved. As midnight approaches, the pace of the evening slows. Others have drifted home or to their camp beds. At the mine, a few dedicated drinkers remain at the bar, nursing their drinks and sharing increasingly exaggerated stories. You find yourself at your small desk again, counting the night's earnings while keeping one eye on the room. The meeting with the other madams has left you thoughtful, considering your own position and future. Most madams didn't have happy endings. For all her success, Maddie Silks fell for a man named Cortez Thompson, who treated her poorly and lived off her earnings. Pearl DeVere died of that overdose. Few managed to turn their financial success into the respectability they wanted. You've been luckier than most. You've saved carefully, invested where you could, and avoided the trap of addiction that claimed many in your profession. You're not rich, but you have enough set aside. That retirement isn't an impossible dream. A small house, somewhere quiet, perhaps a garden, books to read, with no one knowing or caring about your past. The fantasy is pleasant enough that you allow yourself to think about it for a moment. Your pen pauses as you count the figures. Your shoulders, tense from the day's concerns and the evening's warning, begin to relax slightly. You roll your head gently, feeling the small pops as your neck releases its tightness. From the piano comes a slow, soothing melody. Of it matches your breathing, which has slowed without you noticing. Your body feels heavier, more settled in your chair. The familiar sounds of the saloon murmured conversations, the clink of glasses, occasional laughter create a comfortable backdrop as you continue your work. Your hand moves smoothly across the page, the scratch of pen on paper joining the other sounds of the room. You stifle a yawn, stretching your arms above your head before settling back into a more comfortable position. The burgundy satin of your dress rustles softly with the movement. You feel your muscles releasing their tension, your breathing deepening naturally as you continue reviewing the night's transactions. That's it, nice and easy. The night's nearly done. Most of your girls are settled with customers, and tomorrow you'll need to help Emily adjust to her new life here. Has switched to an even gentler tune, something that reminds you of rainfall on a tin roof. Morning comes too soon. Sunlight slants through the gaps in your curtains, landing directly across your eyes. You groan, rolling away from the brightness. Your head pounds slightly. Went to bed. The thin mattress creaks as you sit up, your body protesting every movement. Running a brothel is physically demanding work, despite what most people might think. The saloon, the girls' rooms, your office, and wherever else needs your attention. The floor is cold beneath your bare feet as you make your way to the wash basin. The water from last night has gone completely cold, but you splash your face anyway. The shock of it helps clear the sleep from your mind. Outside your window, the town is already coming to life. You can hear the blacksmith's hammer ringing from down the street. A wagon rattles by, its wheels clattering against the uneven ground. Someone is shouting about fresh milk for sale. You dress quickly in a simple navy skirt and white blouse. There's no need for the fancy clothes until evening. Your hair is twisted into a simple knot at the nape of your neck. You add a splash of rose water behind your ears, not the heavy perfume of the night, but something lighter and cleaner downstairs. You find Thomas already at work, sweeping up last night's sawdust and trash. Lucy is at the stove in the small kitchen behind the bar, stirring a pot of what smells like oatmeal. "Morning," she says, not looking up from her task. "Coffee's ready." You pour yourself a cup, enjoying the bitter warmth. Coffee is one luxury you never cut back on. Even in the worst financial times, you make sure to buy good beans. It's a small pleasure in a life that offers few of them. "How's our new girl?" you ask, leaning against the doorframe. Lucy shrugs, still sleeping. "She worked hard last night. Quick learner. Good. When she wakes up, send her to me. I want to go over the rules again." Every madam had her own set of rules for her place. These weren't just about business. They were about survival in a dangerous profession. Rules like, never go with a customer who's too drunk. Don't leave the building with a customer unless I say it's okay. No stealing from customers or other girls. No fighting in here. The famous Jenny Rogers had particularly strict rules for her house of mirrors. Her girls were not allowed to drink too much. They had to maintain a certain standard of dress and behavior at all times. They could not argue with customers, no matter how difficult. Breaking these rules meant being fired immediately, often without the money you were owed. Such strictness might seem harsh, but it was necessary. A brothel was judged by the behavior of its women. A place where the girls were drunk, sloppy, or argumentative wouldn't attract the high-paying customers that made the business profitable. You're halfway through your coffee when there's a sharp knock at the front door. Thomas looks to you, questioning. "I'll get it," you say, setting down your cup. When you open the door, you find a young man in a crisp deputy's uniform. His badge is still shiny enough to suggest it's new. "Ma'am," he says, touching the brim of his hat politely. "Sheriff sent me to update you on the situation with Lily." You step back, allowing him to enter. "Any news?" "They caught the fellow who did it," the deputy says, looking uncomfortable in the saloon, even though it's empty. "A drummer passing through town. He had blood on his clothes." The deputy shifts. "His weight," said she laughed at him when he couldn't perform. You nod, unsurprised. Male pride is a dangerous thing, especially when it's wounded. You've seen violence erupt over less in your years running the saloon. "Sheriff wanted all you ladies to know it's handled," the deputy continues. "No need for extra worry." "Thank the sheriff for the information," you reply formally. "Will there be a trial?" The young man looks even more uncomfortable. "No, ma'am. He tried to escape custody this morning. Sheriff had to shoot." Which means the sheriff or one of his men took care of the problem permanently, saving the town the expense and trouble of a trial for the murder of a prostitute. You're not shocked. In frontier justice, some lives counted more than others. After the deputy leaves, you share the news with Lucy and Thomas. There's a moment of silence as you all take in the information. "Should I tell the girls when they wake up?" Lucy asks. "Did you consider this?" "Yes, but keep it simple. The man responsible is dead. No need for details. That'll just upset everyone." The morning moves on with its usual routines. Girls emerge from their rooms, one by one, some alone, some with customers from the night before, who sneak out the back door. The air fills with the sounds of women living in close quarters, complaints about borrowed items not returned, arguments over whose turn it is to help with breakfast, gossip about customers and each other. Emily appears last, her borrowed dress wrinkled from sleep. She looks better than yesterday, less desperate, more put together. Her eyes find you across the room, and she makes her way over. Madame Catherine, she says formally. Lucy said you wanted to see me. Yes, you reply, pointing to a table in the corner where you can have some privacy. Sit down. She obeys instantly, folding her hands in her lap. Her governess training shows in her posture. Straight back, square shoulders. You did well last night, you begin. Thomas says you're quick and careful with the drinks. No spills, no mistakes in the orders. Thank you, she says, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the praise. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Today, we'll need to discuss what comes next, you continue. Serving drinks is fine to start, but it won't earn you much. Most of our profit comes from other services. Emily's blush deepens, but she meets your gaze steadily. I understand. Do you? This isn't a decision to make lightly. Once you start down this road, it's hard to turn back. Society doesn't offer second chances to women in our profession. It's a harsh truth, but one she needs to hear. Many girls enter the trade thinking it's temporary, just until they save enough to start over somewhere else. Some manage it, most don't. The bad reputation follows them, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone's business. Emily is silent for a long moment, her eyes dropping to her hands. What are my alternatives? She finally asks. You could try for a position as a maid or a laundress, you suggest. The pay is poor, and the work's harder than what you do here, but it's respectable. And would anyone hire me now that I've spent a night under your roof? Her voice is quiet, but not accusing. You don't insult her with false hope. Probably not. In this town, you'd need to move on. With what money? She looks up again, and you see that same determination you noticed yesterday. I have exactly 23 cents to my name. Not enough for a stagecoach ticket, let alone setting myself up somewhere new. It's the problem so many women faced on the frontier. Without money or family support, their options narrowed quickly. The line between being respectable and being ruined was thin and easily crossed. I know what I'm choosing, Emily says, her voice firmer now. I've thought about it all night. I don't see another way forward from where I am. You nod, respecting her clear-eyed view of her situation. All right then, Lucy will help you get ready. You'll need different clothes for evening work. I'll advance you enough for a proper dress and shoes. It comes out of your first earnings. Of course, she agrees. One more thing, you add as she starts to rise. Whatever brought you here, whatever you do while you're here, never be ashamed. We provide a service that men seek out willingly. There's no shame in meeting a demand, no matter what the church ladies might say. It's the same advice Maddie Silks reportedly gave to her new girls. Pride was essential protection in this business. Without it, the judgment and scorn of society could crush a woman's spirit. Emily nods, a small smile touching her lips. Yes, ma'am. As she walks away to find Lucy, you can't help wondering how long she lasts. Some girls adapt quickly to the life, finding it better than the back-breaking work of laundering or the degrading position of domestic service. Others never get used to it, turning to drink or drugs to numb their feelings until they're no longer suitable for the better places. They end up in the cribs, tiny cubicles where the cheapest prostitutes worked or dead from disease, overdose, or violence. You hope Emily will be one of the survivors, like Maddie Silks or Jenny Rogers, who used their beauty and business sense to achieve financial security. But you're realistic enough to know not everyone has the qualities needed to succeed. In this harsh world, the day continues with its usual tasks and small dramas. Rose is still sulking over Johnny Wilson's betrayal, but has stopped breaking things, at least. Mary and Beth have made up over the hairpin dispute, and are now united in criticizing another girl's choice of evening gown. Thomas reports that you're running low on whiskey and will need to place an order with the supplier around midday. A visitor arrives, Dr. Harrison, making his monthly rounds to check on the health of your girls. He's an older man, his hair more gray than black now, with a permanently stern expression that softens only slightly when he speaks to you. Catherine, he greets you with a nod. The usual examinations, I assume. Yes. Plus, we have a new girl who should be checked as well. You reply, leading him to the small back room that serves as your office and, on days like this, an examination room. Dr. Harrison is unusual among frontier doctors for his willingness to treat prostitutes at all, let alone make regular preventative visits. Most doctors would only see fallen women in emergencies and often charged very high rates. But Harrison is a practical man. He understands that disease doesn't respect moral boundaries and that infections spread from brothels to respectable homes through the husbands and sons who visit places like yours. His monthly visits are as much about protecting the wider community as they are about caring for your girls. The examinations are brief but thorough. Each girl is checked for signs of venereal disease, which would make her unable to work until treated. Any other health concerns are addressed as well. Persistent coughs that might indicate tuberculosis, unusual bleeding signs of pregnancy. When it's Emily's turn, you see her hesitation as she approaches the door to your office. This is often the moment when new girls reconsider their decision, when the clinical reality of the profession hits them. It's necessary, you tell her quietly, for your protection and ours. The doctor is discreet and professional. She nods and enters the room, her back straight as ever. When she emerges 15 minutes later, her face is flushed, but she looks composed. All clear, Dr. Harrison announces after the last examination. That new girl is remarkably healthy. No signs of previous activity, as she claimed. You pay his fee higher than what he charges respectable households, but fair considering the risk to his reputation, and see him out through the back door. It wouldn't be good for his regular patients to know he visits your place, even professionally. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the activity in the saloon increases. Girls who have been mending clothes or writing letters to family, always with fake details about their job, begin preparing for the night. Thomas stocks the bar and makes sure the spittoons are empty and cleaned. The piano player arrives, slightly less rumpled than yesterday, and begins warming up with scales and simple tunes. You go to your room to change into your evening clothes. A gown of deep green velvet tonight, slightly out of fashion, but still impressive with its tight top and flowing skirt. A different piece of jewelry, pearl earrings that were payment from a customer who ran short of cash one night. Your hair is arranged more elaborately, with combs holding the gray streaks in a style that suggests elegance without trying too hard to look young. When you return downstairs, you find Emily transformed as well. Lucy has found her a dress of pale blue silk, slightly worn at the seams, but still pretty. Her hair has been curled and pinned up with a few strands left to frame her face. Rouge has been applied to her cheeks and lips, darkening their natural color, just enough to be noticeable in the dim evening light of the saloon. Will I do? She asks, turning slowly for your inspection. You'll do, you confirm, noting with approval that Lucy has chosen a color that suits Emily's fair skin and a style that makes the most of her slender figure. Looks matter in this business. As the evening begins and customers start to arrive, you watch Emily carefully. Her first night as more than just a drink server will set the tone for her time in your place. She seems nervous but determined, laughing at the right moments, accepting drinks bought for her though you notice she's barely sipping them. Smart girl, and allowing men to lead her in clumsy dances to the piano's music around 9. You see her speaking intently with a middle-aged man, dressed in the clothes of a store clerk or a minor businessman. He's not handsome, but he is clean and appears sober, reasonable first customer. After a few minutes of conversation, they both glance toward you. You give a slight nod, and Emily leads him toward the stairs. This is how most transactions happened in the better brothels. There was no crude bargaining or open discussion of services in the public areas. The girls knew the standard prices for different activities. The men either knew as well or were discreetly informed. The madam's approval was sought before going upstairs. It maintained the illusion of politeness that separated parlor houses from the cribs. Emily returns downstairs, about 45 minutes later, her expression neutral as she makes her way to the small desk where you keep the night's money. She hands you several bills, which you count and note in your ledger, before returning a small portion to her percentage. As agreed. Everything all right? You ask quietly. She nods, a small smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes lifting the corners of her mouth. Fine, he was polite. Good. Take a short break if you need it, then back to the floor. The night progresses smoothly. Your regulars are in good spirits. A new vein of silver has been found in the North Mine, promising steady work for months to come. The piano player is in rare form, his fingers dancing across the keys with unusual skill. Even Rose seems to have recovered from her heartbreak, laughing brightly with a group of cowboys fresh from a cattle drive. Around midnight, a commotion at the front door draws your attention. A group of men in dusty trail clothes have arrived. Their loud voices suggest they've already been drinking elsewhere. Their leader, a tall man with a week's growth of beard and a scar running along his jawline, scans the room with the hungry gaze of someone looking for trouble rather than pleasure. You make your way toward them, your expression pleasant but watchful. New customers are always welcome, but not those who might disrupt your carefully maintained place. Gentlemen, you greet them, positioning yourself so that Thomas, behind the bar, has a clear view of the situation. Welcome to the Silver Star. What can we offer you this evening? The scarred man's eyes look you over with a coldness that makes your spine stiffen. Whiskey, he says shortly, and girls. Been on the trail 2 weeks. Of course, you reply smoothly. Thomas will serve you drinks. The girls will join you when they're available. Most of your women are already busy with other customers, a fact the newcomers clearly notice with dissatisfaction. Only Emily and one other girl, Sarah, are currently free. The men settle at a table, ordering a bottle of your cheapest whiskey. They drink quickly, their loud conversation and occasional bursts of harsh laughter creating a tense feeling in the previously relaxed room. When Sarah approaches their table, offering to join them, the scarred leader pulls her roughly onto his lap. She keeps her professional smile, but you can see the discomfort in her eyes. You move closer, ready to step in if necessary. What's your name, girl? The man asks, his voice carrying across the now quieter room. Sarah, she replies, trying to shift to a more comfortable position on his knee. Sarah, he repeats, taking another swig of whiskey. You look like a girl I knew in Abilene. She wasn't friendly enough. Hope you're friendlier. The implied threat hangs in the air. Thomas has moved from behind the bar, positioning himself near the table. Your other customers are watching nervously, some moving toward the door. Violence in a brothel was bad for business. It scared away the better class of customer and attracted the kind you didn't want. Why don't I show you just how friendly I can be? Sarah suggests, standing and offering her hand to the man. It's a skilled attempt to move the situation upstairs. away from the public area where trouble could spread. For a moment, it seems to work. The man grins and starts to rise. Then his gaze falls on Emily, who is trying to make herself invisible near the piano. "Wait," he says, sitting back down. "I want that one. The new one." Emily freezes, her eyes darting to you in alarm. You move forward smoothly, inserting yourself between her and the scarred man's line of sight. "I'm afraid Miss Emily is not available at the moment," you say firmly. "She's promised to another customer who's just stepped out. But Sarah here is one of our most popular girls. You'd be lucky to have her company." The man's eyes narrow, his hand moving to rest on the gun at his hip. "I said, I want that one." The atmosphere in the room has changed completely now. Your regular customers are edging toward the exits. The piano player has stopped mid-song. Thomas has moved closer, his hand beneath the bar, where you know he keeps a shotgun. These were the moments that defined a madam's authority. How you handled difficult, potentially violent customers determined whether your place was seen as safe and orderly or chaotic and dangerous. Mattie Silks was known for personally throwing out troublemakers, sometimes at gunpoint. Jenny Rogers employed bouncers to handle problems before they got out of hand. You don't have bouncers, but you do have Thomas, and you have your own reputation for running a place where the girls aren't mistreated, even by paying customers. "Sir," you say, your voice level but firm. "In my establishment, the girls choose their customers as much as the customers choose them. If you can't accept that, there are other places in town that might better suit your needs." The man stands slowly, his hand still resting on his gun. His companions rise as well, forming a loose semicircle behind him. "Are you refusing to serve us?" he asks, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm suggesting that your approach might be better received elsewhere," you reply, not backing down despite the fear knotting your stomach. The Broken Spoke at the edge of town has girls who might appreciate your directness. It's a calculated risk, directing them to your lowest-end competitor. Either they'll leave peacefully to seek easier prey, or the situation will explode into violence right here and now. For a long moment, no one moves. You can hear the tick of the clock behind the bar, the creak of floorboards as someone shifts their weight, and your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. Then the scarred man laughs, the sound as sharp and cold as breaking ice. "Fine," he says, tossing some coins on the table. "Keep your fancy girls. Let's find somewhere more welcoming." As they file out, their threatening presence leaving with them, you feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. The room seems to take a collective breath. "Thank you," Emily says quietly from behind you. You turn to find her pale but composed. "We take care of our own here." It was true, despite the competitive nature of the business, despite the harsh economic realities that sometimes forced madams to make difficult decisions about which girls to keep and which to let go, the better. Brothels operated as communities. The women looked out for each other, shared what they had, celebrated each other's successes, and mourned each other's losses. Mattie Silks was known for nursing sick girls back to health rather than simply replacing them as some madams did. Jenny Rogers loaned money to women trying to start their own businesses outside the trade. Fanny Porter, a famous Texas madam, kept in touch with her former employees long after they'd left her place, often helping them find husbands or respectable jobs. In a world that offered women few protections, they created their own safety nets. The rest of the night passes without any more trouble. The scarred man and his companions don't return. Your regular customers gradually filter back in as word spreads that the trouble has moved on. The piano music resumes, drinks flow, and business continues. By the time you close up around 2 o'clock in the morning, you're exhausted. The confrontation drained what little energy you had left after a long day. Your feet ache in your boots. Your back protests from hours of maintaining perfect posture. And even your face is tired from the constant performance of being the calm Madame Catherine. You dismiss Thomas for the night, assuring him you can handle the final lockup. The girls have all retired to their rooms, some alone, some with customers who've paid for the whole night, and lamps are put out. You find Emily sitting alone at the bar, a barely touched glass of whiskey in front of her. "Long day," you comment, sliding onto the stool beside her. She nods, staring into her drink. "Is it always like this?" "Like what?" "So, intense. That man tonight, the way you handled him." You consider her question, wanting to be honest without scaring her further. Not every day, but often enough that you need to be prepared. Few do at the start. You admit it's not an easy life, but it's not all bad either. A kind of freedom that respectable women don't have. You add with a small smile, and the friendships, the women here, they become like family. Emily nods, slowly, taking this in. "I think I'd like that." "Family, get some sleep," you tell her, patting her hand. "Tomorrow will be easier." As she heads upstairs, you finish the last of your closing tasks. The night's earnings are safely locked. Away in your office, the bar is wiped clean. The piano is covered to protect it from dust. Finally, you make your way to your own room, your body crying out for rest. You remove your fancy clothes with slow, tired movements, hanging the green velvet gown carefully to prevent wrinkles. The pearl earrings go into a small jewelry box on your dresser. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean of makeup, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth are visible now, telling the story of years spent in smoky rooms, managing difficult situations. Settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding, finding the comfortable spots worn into shape by years of sleep. The sounds of the night drift through your window, a distant dog barking, the occasional voice of someone making their way home late, the soft rustle of wind through the cottonwood trees that line the main street. Your thoughts drift to the events of the day, Emily's first real night of work. The confrontation with the scarred man, the news about Lily's killer. So much happens in this small world you've created. Opportunities. Your breathing slows as you settle deeper into the mattress. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. Your muscles, tense from hours of being on guard, gradually unwind. It's finally time to rest. Morning comes with the sound of hammering from somewhere down the street. You groan, rolling over to bury your face in the thin pillow. It doesn't help. Giving up on more sleep, you push yourself into a sitting position. You drank while entertaining customers. The hammering continues. To you, day clothes put on. There's no need for the fancy evening act yet. That transformation will come later. Downstairs, you find Thomas already at work, restocking the bar with bottles he brought up from the cellar. There's no sign of any of the girls yet. They'll sleep late after last night's work. Even Lucy, who is usually an early riser, hasn't appeared. Morning, Thomas greets you, his voice low out of habit. The walls are thin, and loud noises travel easily to the rooms above. Coffee is hot. You pour yourself a cup, enjoying the bitter warmth. Any word from our whiskey supplier? Shipment should arrive on tomorrow's stage, he confirms. I paid extra for quick delivery. You nod in approval. Running out of whiskey would be a disaster for business. Men came to places like yours for many reasons, but alcohol was always near the top of the list. Did we have any trouble after I went to bed, you ask, sipping your coffee? Thomas shakes his head. Relief washes through you. You had half expected the scarred man to return with his friends, or a drunken need to prove he was in charge. The fact that he moved on to easier targets is a small blessing as you settle at your desk to review yesterday's accounts. The front door opens. It's too early for customers, and your girls know to use the back entrance during the day to keep up a certain level of discretion. Sheriff Mills steps inside, removing his hat as his eyes adjust to the dimmer light. His expression is hard to read, but there's a tension in his shoulders that immediately puts you on alert. Catherine, he says with a nod, I need a word. You gesture to the chair across from your desk. What can I do for you, Sheriff? He sits, placing his hat on his knee. We had some trouble last night over at the Broken Spoke. The Broken Spoke, the place you directed the scarred man and his friends toward. Your stomach tightens. What kind of trouble, you ask, though you can already guess. Man dead, stabbed. The sheriff's eyes fix on yours. A fellow with a scar along his jaw. Despite your dislike of the man, the news sends a chill through you. Word is, you sent him and his boys over there after you refused to serve them. There's no accusation in his voice, just a statement of fact, but you feel defensive anyway. They were looking for trouble. Specifically, they were looking to trouble one of my new girls who wasn't interested. I suggested they might find more willing company elsewhere. The sheriff nods slowly. That's about what I figured. Don't worry, you're not in any trouble. I'm just trying to piece together his movements last night. Do you know who killed him? One of Bessie's girls. Looks like. She claims self-defense. Says he got rough. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Bessie ran the Broken Spoke with very little oversight and even less concern for her employees' well-being. Her girls were often desperate women with few other options. Older, addicted to something, or otherwise unable to get jobs in the better houses. Will there be a trial? You ask, though you suspect you already know the answer. Sheriff Mills shrugs. I doubt it. Nobody's too upset about a stranger causing trouble, and Bessie's already paid the fine for disturbing the peace. That was how justice often worked in frontier towns, and especially if he'd been killed by a prostitute defending herself, the matter was usually settled with a fine and maybe some money paid to the brothel owner for the lost business. Anything else you need from me, you ask, eager to move the conversation along. Being associated with a death, even indirectly, was bad for business. Just wanted to let you know, Mills says, rising, and to suggest you might want to be careful about who you turn away. Sometimes it's safer to handle trouble in your own place than to pass it along. The advice stings, but you keep your expression neutral. I'll keep that in mind. After he leaves, you sit in silence for a moment, processing the news. The scarred man is dead, killed by one of Bessie's girls when he got violent. It could just as easily have happened here, to Emily, or any of your other women. The dangers of the profession were always present, not just from disease or being shunned by society, but from the very customers who provided your living. Women in the trade faced violence regularly from men who felt they were owed more than they'd paid. 4. From those who resented paying at all, and from those who simply enjoyed inflicting pain. Madams like Mattie Silks and Jenny Rogers employed male bouncers specifically to protect their girls from such dangers. Others, like Cad Thompson of Virginia City, Nevada, handled violent customers themselves. Thompson once gave a severe beating to one of her employees who had argued with her, throwing the woman out of the brothel. When the employee took Thompson to court, the madam was found not guilty. The law rarely sided with prostitutes, even against other women in the trade. The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupts your thoughts. Lucy appears, already dressed for the day in a simple brown skirt and cream blouse, her hair neatly braided. "Morning," she says, then notices your expression. Something wrong. You briefly explain the sheriff's visit and the death at the Broken Spoke. Lucy listens without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each detail. "Should we tell the girls?" she asks. "When you finish, you consider this." "Yes, but not all at once, individually, as they wake up. No need to cause a panic, but they should know to be extra cautious for a while. His friends might come looking for revenge." Lucy nods, understanding the delicate balance you're trying to keep, informing your employees of potential dangers without frightening them so much they can't work effectively. "I'll start breakfast," she says, moving toward the small kitchen area. "The girls will be hungry when they get up." The morning progresses slowly. Your women emerge one by one from their rooms in various states of messiness. Others show the strain of entertaining difficult customers late into the night. You or Lucy speaks to each one privately about the incident at the Broken Spoke, emphasizing caution without going into the more disturbing details. Emily is one of the last to appear, her borrowed dress wrinkled, her hair falling from its pins. She looks younger in the harsh light of morning, more vulnerable. When you pull her aside to explain what happened, her face pales. "That man died because of me?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. "No," you say firmly. "He died because he was violent with a woman who defended herself. His choices led to his death, not yours or mine." She doesn't look entirely convinced, but nods anyway. "Will there be trouble for us?" "Possibly," you admit. The sheriff doesn't think his friends will make much fuss. They were just passing through town. "But we'll be watchful for a few days, just to be safe." The frankness with which you discuss potential violence might seem cold to outsiders, but it was simply the reality of life in a frontier brothel. Danger was acknowledged and prepared for, not hidden behind polite lies. As midday approaches, you send Thomas to the general store with a list of supplies: flour, sugar, coffee, lamp oil, and other necessities for running the place. With him gone, you take over bar duties, wiping down the already clean counter and arranging glasses for the evening. Lucy oversees the cleaning of the saloon, floors swept, spittoons emptied and scrubbed, tables wiped down, chairs arranged. The girls who aren't helping with these tasks are upstairs, washing clothes, mending tears in dresses, or simply resting before another long night. This was the rhythm of life in a brothel. Evenings of entertainment and business, mornings of recovery, and afternoons of preparation. The cycle repeated day after day, with only Sundays offering a slight change when you opened later, out of a nod to respectability rather than any real religious feeling. Around 2 in the afternoon, there's another knock at the door, remembering yesterday's trouble. But when you open it, you find a young boy holding a letter. "Delivery for Madame Catherine," he says, holding out the folded paper. "The lady at Madame Rosalie's said to bring it straight to you." You give the boy a penny for his trouble and close the door before opening the letter. The paper is fine quality, the handwriting elegant, Madame Rosalie's distinctive script. The message is brief but concerning. A man matching the description of one of the scarred leader's friends was seen asking questions about the fancy house with the uppity madam around town this morning. Rosalie thought you should be warned. You fold the letter and tuck it into your pocket, considering your options. You could close for the night, making up some excuse. But that would mean a significant loss of income for both you and your girls. You could hire extra security, but reliable men on short notice would be expensive and might create more tension than they prevented. In the end, you decide on a middle path. You'll open as usual, but station Thomas near the door with instructions to turn away anyone who seems connected to last night's trouble. You'll also speak to Sheriff Mills again, letting him know that there might be a specific threat to your place, just as you've made this decision. There's a commotion from upstairs, raised voices, a thump, then the sound of breaking glass. Hurry up the narrow staircase to find Rose and another girl, Jenny, facing each other in the hallway outside their rooms. Rose's cheek has a red mark that will likely become a bruise. Jenny is breathing hard, her hands clenched into fists. What's going on here? You demand. Stepping between them, both women start talking at once, their accusations overlapping. Stolen jewelry, borrowed clothes not returned, customers stolen. The usual arguments of women living in close quarters with limited resources and competitive work. Enough, you say sharply. Rose, go downstairs and have Lucy look at that cheek. Jenny, in your room, now. They obey, though not without final glares at each other. You follow Jenny into her small room, closing the door behind you. Explain, you say, crossing your arms. Jenny's story pours out in a mix of excuses and accusations. Rose has been stealing her regular customers by offering services at lower prices. Rose borrowed her blue hair ribbon and returned it torn. Rose has been spreading rumors that Jenny has syphilis to scare away her clients. Some of these complaints might be true, others are likely exaggerated or completely made up. The truth hardly matters. What matters is keeping order in your place. I don't care who started it, you tell her when she finally runs out of words. I won't have fighting here. It's bad for business and dangerous for everyone. You and Rose will make peace, or one of you will be looking for a new place to work. Understood? Jenny nods sullenly. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now clean up that broken glass before someone steps on it. As you leave her room, you sigh internally. Managing the personalities and conflicts of your employees was one of the most challenging parts of being a madam. These women came from difficult backgrounds, lived in stressful conditions, and competed for the same limited pool of customers. Friction was bound to happen. Successful madams like Maddie Silks and Jenny Rogers understood this and developed systems for managing these tensions. They assigned specific rooms to their girls, often with the best locations going to those who brought in the most money. They settled disputes quickly and firmly. They established clear rules about customer ownership once a man became a regular with a particular girl. Other women in the house knew not to pursue him. The afternoon continues with more ordinary tasks. You review the liquor inventory, calculating how long the current supply will last until the new shipment arrives. You mend a tear in the green velvet gown you wore yesterday. You write in your private journal, a habit you've kept for years, recording the important events of each day in a secret code that no one else could read if they found it. As evening approaches, the atmosphere in the saloon shifts. The daytime activities give way to preparations for business. Girls who spent the afternoon in plain work clothes or dressing gowns now put on their fine clothes, silk dresses in bright colors, corsets tightened to emphasize their figures, hair arranged in elaborate styles. Faces that looked tired or plain in daylight are transformed with rouge, powder, and carefully applied kohl to darken eyelashes and brows. You make your own transformation, changing into a deep blue satin gown that you reserve for busy nights. The color brings out your eyes, and minimizes the gray in your hair. A string of glass beads that catch the light completes the outfit. They're not real jewels, but they are convincing enough. In the dim evening light of the saloon, Thomas returns from his errands, reporting that he's delivered your message to Sheriff Mills about the potential threat. The sheriff promised to have a deputy walk past your place regularly throughout the evening, but made no guarantees about an immediate response if trouble occurred. We'll manage, you tell Thomas. Just keep your shotgun loaded and within reach. By 7 o'clock, the saloon is ready for customers. Lamps are lit, casting a warm glow that softens the worn furniture and faded wallpaper. The piano player has arrived and is warming up with scales and simple tunes. Your girls position themselves strategically around the room, some near the bar, others at tables, one leaning against the piano with practiced casualness. The first customers begin to arrive. Miners from the day shift, merchants who've closed their shops for the evening, a few cowboys passing through town. The usual mix of men seeking drinks, company, entertainment, and occasionally something more intimate. You make your rounds, greeting regulars by name, introducing yourself to newcomers, making sure that drinks are served promptly and that your girls are interacting effectively with the customers. This public role of the madam was as important as the behind-the-scenes business management. You were the face of the place, setting its tone and standards. Jenny Rogers was known for her grand entrances, sweeping into her house of mirrors in elaborate gowns that established her status immediately. Maddie Silks preferred a more direct approach, moving among her customers with easy confidence, joining card games and drinking with favored patrons. Each madam developed a personality that suited her style and business model. Your approach falls somewhere in between, friendly but reserved, accessible but never overly familiar. You laugh at jokes, accept the occasional drink bought for you, but maintain a certain distance that commands respect. As the evening progresses, you keep a watchful eye on the door, tensing whenever new customers enter. So far, there's been no sign of the companions of the scarred man, but you can't shake the feeling that trouble is coming. Thomas seems to share your concern, staying closer to the entrance than usual, his hand never far from the bar where you know the shotgun is hidden. Emily appears to have recovered from her earlier distress. She's sitting with an older gentleman who's been a regular for years, a banker who treats the girls well and pays generously. He's a good customer for her second night. You make a mental note to compliment Lucy on the pairing. She has a knack for matching girls with suitable clients. Around 9, the saloon is nearly full. The piano music has shifted from gentle background tunes to livelier dancing numbers. Several couples circle the small open area in the center of the room that serves as a dance floor. The noise level has risen with the amount of alcohol consumed. Laughter, conversation, the occasional shout of greeting when someone new arrives. You're just thinking that perhaps your concerns were for nothing when the front door bangs open with enough force to hit the wall behind it. The music stutters to a halt. Conversations die mid-sentence. All eyes turn toward the entrance. 3 men stand there, dusty from the trail, with hard eyes and hands hovering near their weapons. You recognize them immediately as the companions of the scarred man from last night. They scan the room, their gazes finally settling on you where you stand near the bar. The tension in the room is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Customers draw back, creating a clear path between you and the newcomers. Thomas has moved his hand beneath the bar to where the shotgun is kept, but you give him a slight shake of your head. Starting a gunfight in a crowded room would be a disaster. Gentlemen, you say into the silence, your voice steady despite the fear curling in your stomach. What can we offer you this evening? The man in the center, older than the others, with a gray-streaked beard and cold blue eyes, steps forward. You're the one who sent Jed over to that other place last night. There's no point in denying it. I suggested he might find more willing company elsewhere. Yes. The man takes another step toward you. He's dead, a knife in the ribs. So I heard, you reply, maintaining your calm exterior through sheer force of will. A tragedy for his friends and family. It happened because you wouldn't serve him. There it is, the accusation you've been expecting. The attempt to place the blame for their friend's death on your shoulders, rather than on his own violent behavior or the woman who defended herself. It happened, you correct carefully, because he behaved in a way that led to violence. I'm sorry for your loss, but my decision to protect my employees was not the cause of his death. The man's expression darkens. One of his companions mutters something, his hand moving closer to his gun. The few remaining customers are now heading for the exits, sensing the potential for trouble. Your girls have drawn together in a tight group near the piano, their eyes wide with fear. This is the moment that tests a madam's authority and resolve. How you handle this confrontation will determine not just your immediate safety, but your reputation and standing in the community. Will you be seen as someone who can protect her own, or as an easy target for future threats? Maddie Silks once faced down an angry customer with a Derringer pistol when he threatened one of her girls. Jenny Rogers relied on male bouncers to handle such situations, but was known to stand her ground verbally against even the most intimidating men. Cad Thompson of Virginia City fought her own battles, once giving a severe beating to a troublesome customer who refused to pay. Your hand moves slowly to your pocket, where you keep a small pistol for emergencies. I understand you're upset, you say, your voice still steady. Let me buy you and your friends a drink, and we can discuss this civilly. It's a gamble. Offering hospitality might calm the tension, or it might be seen as weakness. The man hesitates, his eyes flicking to your hand in your pocket, then to Thomas behind the bar, then to the now nearly empty saloon where potential witnesses have fled. Just as he opens his mouth to respond, the back door bangs open. Sheriff Mills strides in, his hand resting on his holstered gun, with two deputies behind him. "Evening, gentlemen," he says mildly, but there's steel beneath the casual greeting. "I heard there might be some trouble brewing. Thought I'd stop by." The leader of the three men straightens slightly. "No trouble, Sheriff. Just having a conversation with the lady here." "Good to hear," Mills replies, moving to stand beside you. "Because this town's had enough excitement lately. Wouldn't want any more unfortunate incidents." The implied threat hangs in the air. After a tense moment, the bearded man gives a short nod. "We'll be moving on tomorrow anyway. We just wanted to pay our respects to the lady who sent our friend to his death." "And now you have," the sheriff says. "Anything else?" The three men exchange glances. Then the leader shakes his head. "Nothing that can't wait for another time, another place." They back toward the door, unwilling to turn their backs on the sheriff and his deputies. Only when they've disappeared into the night does the tension in the room begin to fade. "Thank you, Sheriff," you say quietly. "Your timing was perfect." Mills shrugs. "Just doing my job. I figured they might come calling after what happened to their friend." He looks around the now empty saloon. "You might want to close early tonight. Let things cool down." You nod, already calculating the financial loss against the potential danger of staying open. "I think you're right." After the sheriff and his deputies leave, you begin the process of closing the saloon. Thomas locks the doors and begins putting out lamps. The girls, still shaken by the confrontation, help clean up without their usual chatter and complaints. By midnight, everything is secured for the night. You've decided to keep everyone inside until morning, concerned that the 3 men might be waiting somewhere in town despite the sheriff's warning. The girls will sleep in the saloon not comfortably, but safely. As you arrange blankets on the bar and tables to create makeshift beds, Emily approaches you. "Is this normal?" she asks softly. "This kind of danger?" You consider how to answer truthfully without frightening her further. "Not every day," you finally say, "but not uncommon either. This business attracts certain types of men. Some are just looking for company or a good time. Others bring their troubles with them." She nods slowly. "I thought, ... double quotes. She hesitates. "I don't know what I thought. Not this." "Few do at the start," you reply, echoing your words from last night. "It gets easier. You learn to read people, to spot trouble before it arrives, and you're not alone. We look out for each other here." This was perhaps the most important part of life in a frontier brothel. The community formed by necessity among women's society had cast out. They shared resources, protected each other, celebrated together, and mourned together. For many, it was the first time they'd experienced such closeness. As the night deepens, the saloon grows quiet. Most of the girls have settled into their improvised beds, their breathing growing deeper and more regular as sleep takes them. Thomas has positioned himself near the front door, a rifle across his knees, ready for any disturbance. You find yourself at your small desk, too keyed up from the evening's events to sleep, despite your exhaustion. Your ledger lies open before you, but the figures blur as your mind replays the confrontation, imagining how differently it might have ended without the sheriff's timely arrival. The small oil lamp casts shadows across the room, creating pools of darkness between islands of warm light. Outside, the town has fallen silent. Even the dogs that usually bark through the night seem to be resting. You lean back in your chair, feeling the tension in your shoulders begin to release slightly. Your breathing slows to match the quiet rhythm of the night. The fear that has been sitting like a stone in your stomach all evening begins to dissolve. Peace. You allow your guard to drop just a little. Your eyes grow heavy as the adrenaline from the confrontation finally leaves your system. You shift in your chair, finding a more comfortable position as your muscles relax one by one. The soft sounds of your sleeping girls create a gentle backdrop to your thoughts, which are beginning to drift like leaves on a slow-moving stream. The weight of responsibility eases slightly as you realize that everyone is safe for tonight, at least. You feel yourself settling deeper into your chair, your breathing naturally slowing as the events of the day fade into memory. A yawn escapes as your body tells you what your mind has been resisting, that it's time to rest, to gather strength for tomorrow's challenges. Just for a moment, you think, closing your eyes, just a brief rest while everything is quiet and still. You adjust your position slightly, getting more comfortable as the night deepens around you. The distant sound of wind in the cottonwoods creates a soothing rhythm that seems to match your heartbeat as it gradually slows. You wake with a start, your neck stiff from sleeping in the chair. Gray morning light filters through the windows. For a moment, you're confused. Then the events of last night come rushing back. The confrontation, the sheriff's arrival, the decision to keep everyone inside. Thomas is still at his post by the door, though his head has dropped to his chest in sleep, the rifle still balanced across his knees. The girls are scattered around the saloon in various states of slumber, some curled on makeshift beds, others using their folded arms as pillows. On the tables you stretch, wincing at the pain in your shoulders and back. too old to be sleeping in chairs, you think with regret. Then again, you're too old for a lot of things about this life. A fact that's becoming clearer with each passing year. Rising quietly to avoid waking the others, you make your way to the small kitchen behind the bar. The stove is cold, but you find the remains of yesterday's coffee in a pot. It's bitter and strong, but the warmth and caffeine are welcome as you try to shake off the fog of interrupted sleep. Cup in hand, you return to the main room and gently wake Thomas. He jerks awake, his hands tightening on the rifle before he recognizes you. Easy, you murmur, it's just me. Morning. Any trouble in the night? Not that I know of. I fell asleep at my desk. You glance toward the still locked front door. Think our visitors have moved on. Thomas rises, moving to peer through a gap in the curtains covering the window. Streets. Quiet, just the usual morning folk heading to work. You consider your options. You can't keep the saloon closed forever, and your girls can't stay locked inside forever. At some point, you'll have to return to normal business and accept whatever risks come with it. Let's wait till the sheriff makes his rounds. You decide. If he gives the all clear, we'll open as usual tonight. Thomas nods, moving to stoke the stove for breakfast. The noise and activity begin to wake the others. Girls stretch and yawn, complaining about sore backs and necks from their uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. The piano player, who stayed as well, begins to pick out a gentle morning tune, his fingers moving automatically across the keys despite his still drowsy state. Lucy organizes breakfast, the last of yesterday's bread, some cheese, and coffee, for those who want it. The mood is quiet, but not fearful. These women have faced dangers before. Last night's confrontation was frightening, but not unheard of in their lives. On the frontier, Emily sits apart from the others, a cup of coffee clutched in her hands, her expression thoughtful. You join her, settling into a chair at her small table. Quite an introduction to the business, you comment. 2 days in, and already involved in a standoff. She offers a small smile. Not what I expected, that's certain. She hesitates, then adds, but I'm still here. There's a determination in her voice that you approve of. She's made of stronger stuff than her delicate appearance suggests. Good, you reply. This work isn't for everyone, but for those who can handle it, there are worse ways to make a living. And it was true. Prostitution on the frontier often provided women with an income and independence they couldn't find elsewhere. While a laundress might earn $10 to $20 a day for back-breaking work, a prostitute in a decent place could make $5 to $10 per night. Madams like Maddie Silks and Jenny Rogers accumulated great wealth, owning property and businesses at a time when most women were legally and financially dependent on men. Around mid-morning, Sheriff Mills makes an appearance, knocking at the back door rather than the still-locked front entrance. Thomas lets him in while you gather the girls in the main room to hear whatever news he brings. Your troublemakers boarded the eastbound stage at dawn, Mills announces, without preamble. The station master confirmed it. They're gone. A collective sigh of relief passes through the room. The immediate threat, at least, has passed. Any chance they'll come back? You ask, not willing to let your guard down completely. The sheriff shrugs. It's possible, but not likely. Men like that are usually just passing through. By the time they reach the next town, they'll have found new troubles to occupy them. You nod, accepting his assessment. Thank you for checking, Sheriff, and for your timely arrival last night. Mills touches the brim of his hat in acknowledgement. Just doing my job, ma'am. His gaze sweeps the room, taking in the makeshift sleeping arrangements and the slightly messy appearance of your girls. I'd recommend you all get some proper rest today. It won't do business any good to have your ladies falling asleep on the customers tonight. After he leaves, you announce that the saloon will open as usual this evening, but that everyone should take the day to recover from last night's stress. The girls scatter to their rooms, eager for the comfort of proper beds after their uncomfortable night on the saloon floor. You go to your own room as well, shedding yesterday's clothes and stretching out on your narrow bed with a sigh of relief. Your body sinks into the familiar mattress, your muscles gradually releasing their tension. Sleep claims you quickly, pulling you into a deep, dreamless rest. When you wake in the late afternoon, you feel renewed. Night have faded, replaced by your usual practical focus on the business ahead. You wash thoroughly, enjoying the luxury of water that's been heated on the stove, rather than the cold splash that started your day. As you dress for the evening in a gown of deep purple silk, one of your finest, you consider the events of the past few days. The threat from the scarred man and his companions has passed, but it serves as a reminder of the risky position you hold in this frontier town. For all your business skill, for all the money you've saved and invested, you remain vulnerable, a woman alone, running a place that exists at the pleasure of men who could shut it down or destroy it at any time. The sheriff who protected you last night could just as easily raid your saloon if public opinion turned against businesses like yours. This was the reality that all madams faced, even the most successful. They operated in a narrow space between tolerance and condemnation, always aware that their position could change with the next election, the next moral crusade, or the next shift in the town's fortunes. Many tried to secure their status through charity work and community involvement. Mattie Silks was known for buying clothes and school supplies for poor children in Denver. Jenny Rogers contributed to public projects. Even Squirrel Tooth Alice, a Texas madam known for her distinctive dental feature, regularly donated to her local church, though she was not herself welcome to attend services. As you finish dressing, you find yourself thinking about the future. How long can you continue in this business? What comes after? Few madams managed graceful retirements. Many gave in to the dangers of the profession. Violence, disease, addiction. Others simply faded away as age made them less appealing to customers who valued youth and beauty. Mattie Silks was one of the exceptions. After years of running successful brothels in Denver, she eventually married a cattle dealer named Jack, ready and lived out her days in relative respectability. Jenny Rogers was less fortunate, struggling with health problems in her later years before her death in 1909. Your own savings, carefully collected and invested over the years, might be enough for a modest retirement somewhere far from here, where no one knows your history. A small house, perhaps, a garden, books to read, simple pleasures after years of managing the complex, often dangerous business of running a brothel. But not yet. First, there's tonight's business to attend to, tomorrow's supplies to order, next, week's accounts to balance the daily work of survival and success that has defined your life for so long. Downstairs, you find the saloon already coming to life. Thomas has the bar stocked and ready. The piano player is warming up with scales and simple tunes. Your girls, rested after their day off, are in good spirits as they prepare for the evening. Ahead, Lucy approaches as you look over the room. "Everything's ready," she reports, "and we've got a new girl arriving tomorrow on the afternoon stage. One of Bessie's girls. Why would she send anyone our way?" Lucy shrugs. Apparently, the girl was asking about better places to work after what happened with that scarred fellow. Bessie told her to try here if she wanted a safer place. It's an unexpected compliment from a competitor, especially one like Bessie, who usually cared little for the well-being of her employees. Perhaps the violent death in her brothel has made her think about her business practices. We'll see when she arrives. You decide. No promises until I've met her. The evening unfolds without any trouble. Your regular customers return, apparently unconcerned by the previous night's disturbance. New visitors arrive as well, drawn by the music and the promise of female company after long days of work or travel. You make your rounds, greeting customers, ensuring drinks are served promptly, and settling the occasional minor argument. The familiar rhythm of the night settles around you, seems to have found her footing. She moves among the customers with growing confidence, laughing at their jokes, accepting drinks, and occasionally leading a man upstairs when terms have been agreed upon. She's a quick learner, adapting to the unspoken rules and expectations of the place. By midnight, the saloon is doing good business. The piano music has shifted from gentle background tunes to livelier dancing numbers. The noise level has risen. With the amount of alcohol consumed, laughter, conversation, the occasional shout of greeting when someone new arrives. You find yourself at your small desk, reviewing the night's earnings while keeping one eye on the room. The figures are good, better than average for a weeknight. Perhaps the excitement of the past few days has actually been good for business, bringing in curious customers who wouldn't normally visit. As you make these calculations, you notice Lucy approaching with a concerned expression. Trouble? You ask quietly. She gestures subtly toward a table in the corner where Rose is sitting, with a well-dressed stranger. The man is leaning too close, his hand gripping Rose's arm with visible force. Her smile has a strained quality that signals discomfort. You rise smoothly, making your way toward the table. This is part of your role as Madame, protecting your girls from customers who might become problematic, stepping in before situations get out of hand. Good evening, you greet them, your tone pleasant but firm. Rose, I believe Mary needs your assistance for a moment. It's a code phrase you've established with your girls, offering an excuse to get out of uncomfortable situations. Rose nods gratefully, pulling her arm from the man's grip. If you'll excuse me, sir, she says with practiced politeness. Duty calls. The man frowns, his hand reaching for her again. I paid for your time, and you'll have it, you assure him, stepping between them as soon as Rose has helped Mary with a small matter. In the meantime, perhaps I can keep you company. It's a delicate balance, maintaining the customer's interest and ensuring he doesn't feel cheated, while still protecting your employee from his increasingly aggressive behavior. You signal Thomas with your eyes, a slight tilt of your head that he recognizes immediately. He moves closer to the table, supposedly to offer more drinks, but actually to provide backup if needed. The man looks you up and down, his expression dismissive. No offense, but I prefer something younger. You smile, unsurprised and unoffended. Of course, Rose will return shortly. In the meantime, please enjoy a drink on the house. You gesture to Thomas, who promptly pours a generous whiskey. The free alcohol calms the man down for a moment. By the time he finishes it, you've arranged for another girl, Jenny, who's more experienced in handling difficult customers, to take Rose's place. Crisis avoided, at least for now. This kind of management was constant in a successful brothel. Madams needed to be alert to potential problems, skilled at calming tensions, and willing to step in when necessary to protect their employees. They balanced the need to keep customers happy with the need to maintain order and safety within their places. As the night moves toward its inevitable end, customers gradually leave. Others, who have paid for the privilege, go upstairs with your girls for the remainder of the night. A few dedicated drinkers remain at the bar, nursing their drinks and sharing increasingly exaggerated stories. You find yourself back at your small desk, counting the night's earnings while stifling occasional yawns. It's been a long few days, and the lack of proper sleep is catching up with you, despite your afternoon rest. Emily approaches as you finish your calculations, handing you her portion of the evening's earnings. "Good night," you ask, noting the large amount. She nods, a small smile touching her lips. "Better than I expected." "You're adapting well," you observe. "Some girls never get comfortable with the work." "I'm not comfortable, exactly," she admits, "but I'm managing, and it's better than starving or scrubbing floors until my hands bleed." It's a practical assessment that you appreciate. Either just a clear-eyed understanding of the limited options available to women in her position. "Get some rest," you tell her. "Tomorrow's another day." As she turns to go, she hesitates. "Thank you," she says quietly, "for taking me in, for keeping us safe last night, for everything." The simple gratitude catches you off guard. In this business, thanks are rare. Most transactions are strictly business, services provided, payment received. Personal connections, while they exist, are rarely spoken of so directly. "You're welcome," you reply, surprised by the warmth you feel toward this young woman who arrived at your door just days ago, desperate and alone. Perhaps you see something of your younger self in her determination to survive whatever challenges life presents. After Emily leaves, you complete your final tasks for the night, securing the cash in your hidden safe, checking that doors are locked, and making sure lamps are put out. Thomas has already cleaned the bar and gone to his small room off the kitchen. The piano player left hours ago. The saloon is quiet, except for the occasional creak of the building settling. Finally, you make your way upstairs to your own room, your body heavy with exhaustion. You remove your fine clothes with slow, careful movements, hanging the purple silk gown to prevent wrinkles. The matching shoes are placed neatly beside your dresser. Your hair is unpinned, falling in a gray-streaked wave down your back. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean of makeup, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth tell the story of years spent in smoky rooms that never wanted to see women like you as businesswomen at all. You settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding, finding the comfortable spots worn into, shaped by years of sleep. The sounds of the night drift through your window, a distant dog barking, the occasional voice of someone making their way home late, the soft rustle of wind through the cottonwood trees that line the main street. These sounds have become the soundtrack of your life, as familiar as your own heartbeat. Your thoughts drift to the events of the past few days, the threat from the scarred man and his friends, Emily's arrival and her introduction to the life, the ongoing challenge of running a business that exists on the edges of society's acceptance. So many women like you shaped the development of the American West, though history would rarely acknowledge their contributions. Madams who built businesses, employed others, invested in property and infrastructure, and contributed to public projects. Women who carved out independence in a society that offered them few legitimate paths to self-sufficiency. Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, Pearl DeVere, Squirreltooth Alice, Cad Thompson, Dora Dufresne, and countless others whose names have been forgotten were as much pioneers as the men who struck gold or drove cattle herds across the plains. Your breathing slows as these thoughts wind through your mind. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. Your muscles, tense from hours of being on guard, gradually unwind. The mattress seems to grow more comfortable beneath you, cradling your tired body. The simple cotton sheets feel cool and soothing against your skin. Your eyelids grow heavy, the events of the day fading as sleep approaches. You feel yourself drifting, now your limbs growing heavier, your thoughts becoming less clear. The sounds from outside seem more distant, as if coming from far away. Your breathing deepens, each exhale carrying away a little more tension from your body. That's it. Let yourself sink deeper into this comfortable place. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, the gentle release as each muscle relaxes completely. There's nothing more to do tonight, nowhere to be, no one who needs your attention, just this moment of perfect stillness and comfort. Your mind grows quieter, your thoughts slowing like leaves gently floating down a stream. Images from the day may drift through your mind, Emily's grateful smile, the shine of lamplight on glasses behind the bar, the purple silk of your gown catching the light as you moved through the saloon. But they pass without holding your attention. Even deeper now, your breathing finding a natural, peaceful rhythm. In and out, slow and steady. Your heartbeat calms, your body growing warmer and heavier with each breath. The line between being awake and being asleep becomes blurred, indistinct. And as you surrender to this sweet heaviness, this gentle pulling toward rest, you might wonder briefly about tomorrow and all the tomorrows that will follow. Will you continue in this life you've built, managing your saloon, protecting your girls, collecting your careful savings? Or will you someday make that change you sometimes dream of? The small house, somewhere quiet, the garden, the books, the peaceful anonymity of a life without judgment. The question floats away unanswered as sleep claims you fully now. Your breathing deep and regular, your body completely at rest, safe in this moment of perfect peace, drifting deeper and deeper into slumber as the night unfolds you in its quiet embrace. The frontier town sleeps around you, the miners in their boarding houses, the merchants in rooms above their shops, the cowboys in trail camps beyond the town limits. Even the saloon girls in their small rooms have found temporary escape in sleep, a brief break from the complications of the lives they've chosen or that have been chosen for them. And you, Madame Catherine, keeper of secrets, manager of desires, businesswoman in a man's world, you sleep too. Your dreams perhaps carrying you to that quiet place you sometimes imagine, or perhaps returning you to moments from your past, experiences that shaped you into the woman you've become.